Hello, good morning, and welcome to episode number 6 of Touch from Grass podcast. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Grace Floyd if you're new, and on this podcast we talk about all things holistic health, life, living. I was about to say live, laugh, love. That's basically the vibe, let's be honest. I know we talk about all things when it comes to holistic health and what it means to come home to you in a way that feels true to you. I share tips about helping you feel your best in the skin that you're in. And today's episode is part 2 of my 3-part series. 5? 3? If you're listening on Spotify, I just put up 5 fingers, not 3. But anyway, 3-part series of all things skin. So if you haven't listened to the first episode of this series, it's episode number 5. Jump back to that one and listen to it because it's a super important message about reframing your view on skin. And like I said at the start of the last episode as well, like this is my jam, this is my why, and it really does mean a lot to me. And I know there are so many other people out there who are currently struggling with their skin, which is essentially my why. Like I want to help you to not have to struggle with it and to move past it, live past it, and not let it limit you and your life. Let it be your strength. And choose to see it in a different light so you can actually reverse it and live a life that you are here to live, essentially, and take all the wisdom and the lessons and the learnings from what you've experienced with your skin and channel that into strength and wisdom into who you are stepping forward. So the first episode was all about reframing your view on skin. This second part of the series is more so going to be about like the crux of the hows and the whys, and sort of stripping back from the fact that yes, now we should be on the same page about skin is not really a skin thing, it's an internal thing, it's an internal job. And this next part is all about understanding what that means, and from a point of view on a physical and a mental and emotional and spiritual point of view. And something that I also want to point out is when I talk about like spiritual point of view, I don't necessarily mean God or, I think sometimes the term spiritual isn't always it's said, but people have different perceptions of it, right? And when I say spiritual, I'm not talking about necessarily a religion or believing in all this spirituality woo-woo stuff as much as I do. I know that not everyone does. And I think because of that, it can receive a bit of criticism before even people consider that it could literally just mean more connected to who you are as a person, as a whole, your spirit. And when we say like your spirit, like the things that make you feel alive, the things that light your soul on fire, the things that bring life into your spirit, if that makes sense. So that's what I mean by spirituality. It's doing the things that light you up. And if that means believing in something bigger than yourself, which I know is a huge factor in, I think, a lot of people who face challenges with their health, you're kind of forced to believe in something bigger than yourself, because you sit there thinking, what the fuck is my life? There's got to be something, a greater meaning, a greater purpose, something else out there that is a driving force, and whatever else that comes along with that. So it's just like those little bits, the little seeds that I think give a little bit more magic and a little bit more fun in this journey of health, because I think I don't want, as much as I'm going to be talking today about things like the skin, gut, brain axis, and things like leaky gut, tight junctions in the gut. So kind of delving a little bit more into the, I guess, sciencey side of gut health. I don't want it to be so heavy and dense in terms of lingo and science and struggling to understand it, which is why I'll tend to weave in different things when it comes to spirituality or believing in something bigger than yourself, because it makes it a little more fun in my eyes and a little bit more enjoyable to talk about and to consider these other points of view and consider it on a holistic lens rather than just looking at it for simply a gut problem. And I think that is where a lot of the modern medicine sometimes does fall short, is because it focuses on one point. Like, let's say, there's someone out there who goes, yes, skin is a gut problem. So they focus solely on the gut. that's all well and good, and that can get you, it can get you very far, which is amazing. However, you can't just leave it simply to following a gut protocol and hoping the best. It's like, okay, well, what about your emotions? What about your beliefs? What about your spirit that has kind of been crushed by struggling with your health? And as much as you can get it back from focusing on your gut, as in get back your health, there's all this other side of it when it comes to your emotions. This is sometimes where people do struggle when they go and seek out professional help with a health practitioner, whether that is, Western or Eastern medicine, or it's a holistic health practitioner, or whatever it is. I think a true holistic health practitioner is going to address all of your body, right? Because that's what I'm here to help you realize, is that it's not just a singular, it's not just focused on one thing, it's not just your gut, it's everything else. And a good holistic health practitioner will know that and will focus on your emotional body as well as your physical body. However, that's not always the case, and it isn't always connected like that. Or they say, oh, like manage your stress, and just like brush it off as in, oh, manage your stress, like leave you to it. Fucking, it's not that easy, and we have all these learned behaviors and learned responses as to how we perceive stress and how our body perceives experiences in our life, and if we take that on as stress or not. And that is so much of the work that I want to help you with, and that's changed my life so much, is what I perceive in my world, because we all have different views on the world. The world is the same, but it's all different. We all have our own little worlds, right? And the same thing can happen to you or I, but we both perceive it as a totally different event and take it on differently based on our own personal experiences in the past and based on how we see ourselves and the world around us, essentially. And that is what I want to help you when it comes to stress management. Is it's deeper than just, I don't know, going to a sauna and having a spa day every now and then. It's like, no, stress management is like a daily kind of thing. And when you can have these kind of light bulb moments, and that's what I want this podcast to be, like have these, I just trust that there's these little snippets here and there of these light bulb moments that slowly add up to help you change your perception of the world around you and help you change the perception of yourself ultimately in a positive way towards your highest good. Because when we talk about stress management, it's not just a brush off comment. It's almost just as deep as like the gut work. It's like, okay, now let's look at how you perceive stress, how you've perceived stress as a child, how you've perceived all these different events, and then how your body takes that on. Your mind will try and forget what the body cannot. The body keeps score, the body holds on to these things, and the body remembers. So the body has this like learned response of how it deals with situations, and whether that situation will be deemed as stress and your body and your mind take it on, or if it will not be deemed as stress, it's just an event, it just passes by and you go about your day. So we all have different ways in which we do that, and I'll get into that a little more in this episode. So this is all about stress, safety, and the skin, gut, brain axis. I know a lot of people who have skin problems, they're often told you have leaky gut. And that's not even skin problems, like a lot of autoimmune conditions. And that is very real. So leaky gut, or maybe gut dysbiosis, there's some common, I guess, things that are common situations that people can experience. And essentially the way that I like to describe like what leaky gut means in a visual point of view is, if you think about like Velcro, like this, if you're watching, you can see what I'm doing with my hands, like Velcro. It's got all and these are called tight junctions in our gut. And the bits of the Velcro that, one side is soft and one side is sticky, if that makes sense. It's almost like a jigsaw puzzle. So it's got all these little divots in it that one side connects up to perfectly. Now, the thing is with when we have leaky gut or gut dysbiosis is that these tight junctions are not so tight anymore, which then means we can have toxins leaching out of our gut into the rest of our body and vice versa. That's a pretty simplified way to explain what goes on. And that leaky gut, that gut dysbiosis, those tight junctions which are no longer tight and things are toxins and what have you filtrating through those tight junctions, that can then lead to other issues, and it's sort of ongoing flow on effect from here. It can lead to problems with your metabolism. It can lead to hormone imbalances, endocrine like dysfunction as well. Essentially adds to the chronic inflammation, which I talk about a lot, anti-inflammatory food. So eating in a way which is anti-inflammatory. However, if these tight junctions, that's why we want to eat anti-inflammatory, is to help these tight junctions become tight again and to rebuild that gut lining, to strengthen the gut barrier, to strengthen those tight junctions. So you essentially reverse leaky gut through the food that you're eating, and because food can be medicine. And that's why in the first part of the series I talked about creating those strong foundations, and this is that, creating those strong foundations through the food that you're eating, so that you've at least done like the groundwork. Not everyone is going to be able to just simply eat anti-inflammatory and like call it a day. For some people it's more complex than others. Some people may require more supplementation, or they may require more functional testing, which all has its place and is definitely beneficial for some, for a lot of us. However, let's say you want to go and get all that functional testing and you want to go get all the supplements, like that's great. However, what foods are you eating on a daily basis? There's no point going to step 10 before nailing the foundation. So that's what I'm all about, is working on those foundations. And it's not just in the food that you eat, but things like your sleep, things like the stress. So that's what I'll go into today as well. Now, this can also flow into the gut dysbiosis, leaky gut, that flows into other things like your immune health. I know growing up, I used to get sick a lot, like a lot of the time through the winter. And not a coincidence at all, I was experiencing psoriasis a lot. It was a pretty constant in my life, whereas now it's definitely not a constant at all. And it's for the most part in remission, which is awesome. So, our immune system can then be weakened, which then means we can get, infections and stuff sooner. And then there's this dance between the two. It's like, oh, okay, you got a weakened immune system. And what happens if you have an autoimmune condition? Is that essentially your body perceives a virus as a threat, right? And a working immune system will see the threat and attack the threat as such to kill the threat. And hopefully, if you've got a strong and healthy immune system, kills the threat, you don't get sick. However, if your immune system is not so good because you have an autoimmune condition, what we are told is that autoimmune conditions means your body attacks itself. The immune system essentially attacks itself instead of the foreign invader, instead of the virus, which can be the case a lot of the time. However, it doesn't have to be forever, and this is definitely something that we can reverse. So I just want to keep reminding you of that, because I think sometimes, especially in the health world, we're told you have this, you have that, and that's just the way it is, and that's how it's going to be. And that's why I keep reminding you it doesn't have to be that way. These diagnoses or symptoms or different things that you have are all just pointing towards, okay, this is what's going on, and pointing us in a way of getting to a solution. Now, what happens when you have these autoimmune conditions where your immune system attacks itself is that this is a learned response. So it continues to act in this way. And there's a flow on effect from there. It's going on in your body. And then you get stressed about it, because if it then means you have a flare up, your skin gets bad, then it creates a mental loop of, oh my God, I'm getting sick. Oh my God, I'm going to have a skin flare up. Oh my God, I'm going to feel shit about myself. And it's this constant loop. You can kind of predict what's going to happen next, and then your body learns those flow on effects. And this is where the work comes in. This is where we recognize the patterns that are in place. We recognize what's going on a physical point of view, and then we connect it with the mental point of view, and we work with brain retraining. We work with somatic stuff. And I think sometimes somatic healing and somatic practices, like that's a bit of a buzzword at the moment. Same with brain retraining too. But there's pros and cons to everything. However, your body, like I said earlier, your body keeps score, your body remembers these things. So um it's about becoming aware, and hopefully by me introducing this topic maybe to you for the first time, you're now becoming aware of the fact that, oh, this is simply a pattern. And once you're aware of the pattern, you're aware of how these how your body remembers and your mind remembers, and that you probably can relate to, looking back on when you got sick and you'd get scared that you'd have a flare up and all the things, because I know that I definitely went through that a lot, is yeah, recognizing again, it doesn't have to be that way, and you can teach your body differently, you can teach your mind differently, and this is what it's all about. And that's essentially the ethos behind the glow method and what I've created, because I know it's not just a simple gut protocol. It's not just eat this, it's a holistic view. It requires all these different parts, because yes, it is a little bit complex. It's not as simple as like, oh, I want to lose 5 kilos. Like I think a lot of us as well, like, are focused on, oh, like the fitness influencers out there, what Instagrammers are eating, all these things, and like the calories in, calories out. I think more of us are realizing that that is kind of outdated information and only applies to a certain percentage of the population, if that makes sense, of people who maybe don't have these deeper conditions that are underlying that influence the way that their body operates. And if it was that simple, everyone would be doing it, if that makes sense. So, yeah, people who, I guess, listen to fitness coaches who maybe haven't had a history of autoimmune conditions, or don't have the knowledge or the understanding or the awareness around it, probably because they haven't experienced it, so they haven't needed to, or they haven't delved into it, and that's totally fine. Like, it's not right or wrong. Like, they have their people to serve, and the people who want that and suited to that will follow that. But if you're someone who's maybe only seeing that part of it, yet you're still struggling with these deeper parts of your health, you feel like you have a more complicated health situation going on, and you follow these fitness influencers in terms of what healthy means to them and what they eat and how they train and all the things. Like, let me give you an example. If they're suggesting you have overnight oats for breakfast, or they're suggesting you have like, not a McMuffin, an English muffin with like egg and bacon, I guess these are just common breakfasts that I see from fitness influencers, and common breakfasts that I also used to eat before I learned about eating anti-inflammatory whole foods. Like, that's just a couple of examples, and like, that might suit someone, but for someone who's got an autoimmune condition, if you're eating an English muffin with ham, cheese, and tomato sauce and an egg, the only thing I would actually recommend out of that, if you have an autoimmune condition, is the egg. Everything else is quite harmful for your body at this stage anyway. And it's not to say you can't ever eat that food again. I don't want to come across as labeling things good or bad. However, once you learn to understand food and how those different things cause inflammation and are driving your inflammatory cup, which I've spoken about in previous episodes, is like, okay, I don't want to actually eat that food, and it's not even like appetizing to me anymore, because I understand the effects it has on my body, and I don't want that. And you learn to eat in a different way, which supports your health on a deeper level. So I trust that makes sense. If any of that doesn't, though, like, feel free to message me or comment your questions, because I do check all those types of things, and I would love to, speak on that topic further if you do have any questions about that at all. Or if you want to look into it on a more personal level, you can book in for a 15-minute discovery call to see how we can switch up your nutrition to eat in an anti-inflammatory way instead. Now, the other thing when it comes to the skin, gut, brain axis as well, is we've kind of touched on, like, I guess, the basics of gut dysbiosis or leaky gut, and how that influences your skin. Your skin is like the messenger. Your skin is just the example of showing you there's something going on internally. Now, when we talk about the stress part of that as well, understanding how those perceived threats as such in our environment, in our day-to-day life. So different stresses and how that affects the skin, gut, brain axis as well. It's all interconnected, and this is where that next part of learning to reframe and manage our stress on a deeper level actually influence your skin as well, is because it's like a domino effect in your body. If you have a stress in your life, multiple stresses, most of us do in this day and age. So let's say you've got this sort of stress in your life, and it's like a domino effect inside of your body, and the triggers and how that affects even your hormones, the way they're meant to function. Like, hormones are simply like communications in your body. They signal different pathways in your body to communicate with different cells, and the pathway for these hormones to, I guess, travel along and then connect with a receptor, which a lot of them, that's their function. If there is a imbalance in the hormones, disruption to the hormones, the right hormone isn't going to connect with the right receptor. And this is where we see metabolic issues and all those sorts of things, problems with our cycle. This is where we can experience deeper endocrine disorders, and that is things like PCOS and endo as well. So this is where it can, if you have one thing, typically you have a couple of things going on. So this is where the stress point of view is important, to learn to manage it in a deeper way, rather than, like I said, just going for a spa day here or there. That's not managing it on a daily basis. That's not re-teaching your body and your mind daily to see things differently. And I remember, like, one of the first times I went through an NLP process, when I realized that I was stressed, but the way I was dealing it was to be like numb, like to flatline. Like, I wasn't overly happy, but I wasn't necessarily overly unhappy. I was kind of just like on this flat line, and definitely not experiencing joy I could have experienced, and also avoiding the lows in my life. And I realized I had totally avoided what should have been, not should have, but could have been the low points in my life, instead of actually feeling those things. You do what you got to do, we have to keep going, we have to get up, like, it's show must go on kind of thing. So never stopped to deal with anything and just kept going, which pretty much all of us do, and it's a survival mechanism. Like, we need to do it. So I'm not saying it's good or bad. However, it gets to a point where you look back in hindsight and you're like, shit, like, that was a bit of a tough point. And like, maybe you really went through it and you felt all the things, or maybe you didn't at all and you just totally avoided it, and now you're paying for it. And I think that was my experience. So yeah, and when I realized that, a lot of other things started coming to the surface as well. So it's funny that, yeah, like I said, your body remembers things, your body keeps score, what your mind tries to forget, and it really does. And once you start sort of unraveling one thing, a lot of other things will come up from there. And I say that in a way of like how intelligent the body is. And I don't want to say that in a way to like overwhelm or scare you from uh delving into this sort of thing, because it's the best thing I ever did, and it put me on a different path in my life. And well, the path I believe I'm supposed to be on, which is here doing this, speaking about this. And if it wasn't for that unraveling, if it wasn't for feeling the things and learning how I learning how I operate, learning how I perceive the world, I think that's the essence of part of the point in this human life, in this body, and how fortunate that we have the knowledge, the education, the science, the things to sort of break this down and learn, okay, this is how I've operated, this is how I'm currently operating, but it doesn't have to be this way. I can choose to operate in a totally different way. Like, how cool. It's almost like your iOS updates on your phone, some, like, you can't possibly have, I don't know, iOS, I don't know, 8 or something like that. Like, the phones these days won't even function with that. And sometimes you have to update your phone to to work with the new hardware, or I don't know that stuff. But do you know what I mean? Lots of the time you do the update and you're like, what the fuck? Like, this is so strange. Like, this is so weird. But then it becomes normal, and then you just get used to it and you're like, it is what it is. And the point of the iOS update is to upgrade, right? To make it better, more functional. As much as it can be uncomfortable at the start, as soon as that upgrade comes on your phone, eventually it's just normal. It's just the way it is. And eventually, most of the time, you're like, oh yeah, that was a really good feature of the update and it helps me organize my photos better, for example. Like, I love the photo app where if I want to search, like, often I will search like food or place or stuff for content and I'll just search it. Or the people part where it, like, a little bit creepy maybe, but anyway, it scans the people and it sorts different albums for different people. Like, so convenient. Whereas when I first came, I was like, oh my god, this is so confusing. There's so much like different parts to it. But now I like couldn't function without it. But I remember years ago, having the iPhone, that it was just photos and that was all it was. There was no way of categorizing things. So anyway, the point of talking shit about all this iOS stuff is that this is almost what it's like when you're updating your own hardware, your own systems. It can be uncomfortable at first because it's new and it's different, but the point of it is to help you function better, and help you perceive stress better, and all that kind of thing. Because how you choose to perceive different things in your life and take it on as stress or not is actually up to you. And I know that could be a lot right now, but I want you to know that that choice as well is often a subconscious choice, meaning that you're not aware you're making that choice. It's just the way your hardware operates. It's just the way your body has learned to function. So this is where the subconscious work that I do inside the Glow method is fucking amazing and literally life-changing, because it changed my life and I've witnessed it change other people's lives as well. Is you are then aware of things that you were not aware of previously because it's at a subconscious level. You're consciously not aware of it. So we go into the subconscious mind to bring it to your conscious mind, so to bring it into your awareness, and then you're aware of it, and then we can work together to change it and to create these new pathways. And when we pair that with all the other things I just spoke about with the food, like with the, creating the solid foundations, you give yourself the best opportunity at creating these solid new pathways that help you function better, help you deal with stress better, help you communicate better, help you regulate yourself better. And it is a little bit about being a better person. And why would you not want to be a better person? I think as well, in that, I know there can be a lot of noise when it comes to, like, self-development, like it's all about being better all the time. Why can't we just be who we are? And oh my god, I'm so here for that as well. However, there is also a point where sometimes we can't continually just accept and use the self-love movement as acceptance as to who we are and just like call it, I love, like, yes, love yourself, yes, accept yourself. However, meet yourself where you're at and recognize that sometimes you need people like me saying what I'm saying to call you forward, to make you realize that you could be doing things in a way which helps you communicate better, be a better friend, be a better partner, be a better person, show up better for yourself. And if I'm not saying what I'm saying, you may go however much longer thinking that you're I was going to say you're perfect as you are. I'm not trying to say we're not all perfect as we are. And I think I'm a bit like, yeah, I guess nervous talking about these things. I don't want to offend people and I don't want to put things out there to say you're not perfect and you need to do better. But at the same time, sometimes you do need to fucking do better. You do need to show up for yourself more, and you do need to recognize the fact that just because the way you do things, like, let's say, for example, I think a lot of us in our early 20s, you see how your parents do things, right? We see how your grandparents do things. And sometimes I'll see how they do things and I'm like, oh, wow, like they're kind of stuck in their way. That's just the way they operate. And we can see that from this lens. I'm sure other people experience that as well. And I think something that a lot of maybe people from older generations will say, oh, it's just the way I am. Like, yes, we have neuroplasticity on our side in our early 20s. I think it's up to the age of 35. It is like a lot easier for us to change our neural pathways. We do have the science of neuroplasticity and the way our brain works. Like, we're way more malleable before 35. So we are in the absolute prime time to recognize that, oh, maybe the way I'm doing things isn't the best way. Maybe the way I react to things, I could react better. I could not take that on as stress. I could perceive this better. I hope this is making sense, because this is all, I know, talking about something that's like not relative to skin, but at the same time, it actually is so fucking relative to skin, because it's skin, it's like the alchemy of, you are becoming the alchemist of your life. You are unveiling what it means to be healthy and to be vital, and it's so much deeper than just what goes on in your skin. It's who you are, it's how you show up, it's being that person who radiates and glows and all the things. And that's absolutely possible for you, and it's not just in the food you eat, as much as that's an important thing. It's not just in what your gut protocol is, it's how you react, it's how you talk to people, how you talk to yourself. So yeah, I trust that lands for the right people it's supposed to land to, who are listening to this. And right now, maybe that's too much for you, and it's okay. And maybe you'll revisit this down the track and it will land. Or maybe it's planted a seed for you to, now you're a little bit aware of how this goes and you start to piece the pieces together. Or maybe this is the absolute perfect time for you to hear this, and you're like, fucking earth, like, let's rip in, let's do all this stuff. And if that's you, then let me know. The Glow Method is open in March, so I would love to have you. You can book a free 15-minute call for that. I'll have that linked in the show notes. Anyway, either way, whatever point you're listening to this and wherever you are right now in your own journey, I trust that this lands at the right time for the right people. And if not, that's okay too. But anyway, I think it's important to understand that, yes, love and accept yourself, and recognize that the way you are doing things doesn't have to be the way you do things. You can do things differently. The patterns that are playing out in your body and how you perceive the world and everything around you, the body and the mind together, they're so connected. So as much as sometimes something might happen and your head might go spin out and take it all on as stress, your body will also hold on to that too. So there's some really healthy ways we can start to manage that stress, not take it on as stress, or just channel that stress in a different way and use it for fuel to help us be more productive, or to help us perform better in our sport or at the gym, or help us express ourselves more through dance, or whatever your thing is. And I know a lot of us have these different forms of expression that help us to manage stress, which is fucking amazing and so good that we can do all those things. And now there's also the extra layer of like seeing it in a bit of a different light, from a subconscious point of view and from a body somatic kind of point of view. And this is where I love to weave in the work of educational kinesiology and brain gym, which I definitely have my mum to thank for that. And she's an expert in that field. So having that just extra knowledge base there for me as well helps me remember that my body knows. You may have heard of like muscle testing or different things like that through kinesiology, and it's like, yeah, your body knows. Your body is so intelligent, and being able to intertwine that with the subconscious mind, with the food, with the emotions, is the ethos behind the Glow Method. Anyway, I've spoken about a few different things in this part 2. Now part 3 is up next. Part 3 is going to be breaking down a little bit more what I've just mentioned into a little bit more of a step-by-step process. So I would grab your notebook for the next one, or grab the notes in your phone so you can take some notes of how you can do this in your life and how you can start to sort of make these little shifts that compile into really big shifts in your world too. But yeah, I feel pretty complete with that for part 2. If you haven't watched part 1, make sure to go do that. So yeah, thank you so much for listening. If you have any questions or comments or feedback, I am all ears, so feel free to let me know. If you haven't already, I would love for you to follow along with the podcast. It helps this reach more people, and it is the best, one of the best ways you can help support. As well as that, if you want to share with anyone you think may find this beneficial as well, that would be amazing. So yeah, make sure to follow if you're on Spotify, that we can stay in the loop with all the upcoming episodes. And if you are watching along on YouTube, make sure to subscribe. Anyway, thank you guys so much for listening. I'm so grateful, and follow along on Instagram as well. We are coming up to 100 follower mark on Instagram, which I announced a few weeks ago. Well, not announced, just put the idea out there, I would say, about doing a celebration for 100 followers on Instagram, of having a guest come in from the 100 followers. And they're the first ever guest on Touch and Grass podcast, which I think is a super cool idea. And seems like a lot of you also thought the same. So I'm super keen for it. So follow along if you haven't already, because I think we're at 80 something followers at the moment. So we're getting up there. So I feel the 100 followers will be coming soon, which means I'll be able to have the first guest on soon. So I'll run like a little contest or giveaway, whatever you call it, with the 100 followers, and invite the winner on. Obviously, you don't have to come on if you don't want to. However, I would love for you to share your story, because I think everyone has something worth saying, and everyone has different experiences in their life, and we all have our own wisdom and, different things that have shaped us to be who we are. And we're not always given the platform to share those things or the opportunity to do that. So I want to use this as much as I can in that way to help people express themselves and to share the stories of everyone. Because there's so many podcasts out there where we have these big names as guests, or these people who are experts in their field, which is amazing. However, sometimes we forget that like our fucking neighbor next door might have their most amazing wisdom to share with us. And I think that's something cool about like how our ancestors used to live and all those sorts of things, is they shared stories and learned from each other, and they didn't have access to all these experts and whatever. We relied on our elders and all those types of things to share wisdom from generation to generation and share stories and learn from each other. And that's something that in this little community I would love to help do and achieve. So yeah, if you haven't already, follow along on Instagram. If you know of anyone who this would be their vibe as well, share the podcast so they can follow along and, have the opportunity to share their story as well. But thank you so much for joining me today. I so appreciate it, and stay tuned for part 3 coming out very soon. Thanks, guys.